Hello viewers, my name is Mr. Motsapi Kelibone from Mizamo High School. Welcome to the ECDoE broadcast studio. Today's lesson is about animal reproduction, which is a question 4 paper 1 topic. We are going to focus on 3 subtopics on that topic. The reproductive systems part 1. Part 2, we're going to focus mainly on oestrus and oestrus cycle. Then the last part, we're going to focus on various reproductive techniques. Let's start with our first part. So this topic, we know it's 35 marks on section B, and then 15 marks is part of section A. So in your overall paper, this topic covers 50 marks, which is one of the topics you must understand. So as I said, these are the parts we're going to focus on, part 1, part 2, and part 3. Let's zoom straight to our part 1, reproductive systems. Let's start with the first one of a male. So we know that in this topic, animal reproduction, it's whereby we are reproducing the offspring. And for our syllabus, we're going to use cattle as our main example. So the male cattle and the female cattle being the bull and the cow. So let's start with the reproductive system of a bull. Here are some of the examinable aspects for this topic. You must know how to label, how to identify each part, and describing the functions of each part on this topic. And lastly, the reproductive problems associated with reproductive parts of an animal. So the one of a male, we know the primary organs is the testes, which is normally a pair of testes where the male gametes are produced in the sperm cells. And then those testes, they are normally housed inside a bag-like structure called the scrotum, which protects the testes and regulates the temperature of the testes. Then the process whereby the male gametes are produced there, it's called spermatogenesis, whereby millions of sperm cells are produced in a testicle. Right, and then the testes, after being produced, they move upwards to the next organ, which we call the epididymis. So in the epididymis here, it's where the testes are going to be temporarily stored until they mature. And then after that, they are going to move upwards through the vas deferens up here. So they are being now transported from the epididymis into the urethra. But along the vas deferens up there, we have got the secondary male glands that are assisting in the viability of these sperm cells. So the sperm cells are living cells. They must be nourished. They need to be within alkaline medium so that they can survive in the acid medium when they reach the female organs. So you've got your 3 glands there. The first one is the cluster of grapes, as you can see there. We call it the seminal vesicle up there. So your seminal vesicle, its main function is to nourish these sperm cells so that they are always viable and alive. And then you've got the smaller one called the prostate gland, which secretes a milky alkaline fluid so that the sperm cells are swimming inside this alkaline so that they cannot denature when they reach the acid medium. Then the last one would be the corpus gland, right at the mouth of the urethra. So the corpus gland, its main function is to lubricate the urethra and clean this urethra. Remember, in the urethra, you also have the urine passing through there. So before the bull can ejaculate the semen, the urethra must be clean so that the semen is not contaminated there with unwanted substances. So it cleans the urethra there and it lubricates it. So that is basically the 3 glands that assist them. And then you've got the last part, which is the penis. So your penis will serve as your mating organ for a reproduction. Right. Let's then quickly move on to the examinable aspects on this topic. As I said, you must be able to label the organs, describe the function of each organ, and other reproductive processes. So in the male, the main reproductive process, as I indicated, it's our process of spermatogenesis, the process whereby the sperms are produced. And then lastly, you must be able to identify the reproductive problems, especially those that are affecting the male. So let's move on quickly to those reproductive problems affecting the male animal. One of them is infertility. So infertility, the bull has temporarily lost its fertility, maybe due to drought. Then the other problem is called cryptorchidism. So this one, it's a condition whereby one of the testes or both of them, they don't descend into the scrotum bag. Instead, they remain attached in the abdominal cavity of the animal. So the animal, again, will have problems in terms of reproducing. The other one is hermaphroditism. So the key word here, the animal has got both reproductive organs of the male and the female. In the testes, kawijongile inkunzi, but inside it also has the ovaries. When I teach this one, they normally say EK, but I don't know that one. And then hypoplasia, the animal has got the testes, but they are underdeveloped. They are not well developed. So the animal will also have problems. That's why we refer to this section as problems, reproductive problems. They are inhibiting the normal processes there of reproduction. The other one is lack of libido. So the bull does not have interest, lack of interest to service the female animal. Even if the female animal is on heat, it's ready to mate, but maybe because of lack of experience, the bull does not show any interest. That one is called the lack of libido. Then impotence, it's different from lack of libido. With impotence, the animal does have interest. However, it has inability to service the cow. It can't satisfy. Maybe the penis is too short or so. So we say that one is impotence. So some of these problems like your cryptorchidism, hermaphroditism, hypoplasia, we normally say these problems are congenital. So what do we mean by that? When we say it's congenital, it's something that is inborn, congenital. So the animal is nayo the problem, and it's affecting the genitals of an organism. So let's say, for instance, you castrate the animal, you remove its testes. That is not congenital. It's something that artificially was done by the farmer. So that is not congenital. Congenital, it's something up that the animal is nayo. It's natural in a way. Right. Okay. Then let's quickly move on now to the next part now, which is the female now. Because for reproduction to take place, you need both the male animal and the female animal. So the female animal on the other side, in the case of your syllabus, we're going to use a cow as an example. So it also has the primary organs, which is now the ovaries. So I always say to my learners, what makes the animal to be a female? It's not the vagina, it's the ovary. Same thing, what makes the animal to be the male, it's not the penis, it's the testes. Because these are the primary organs where the gametes of an organism are produced. So in the male, the testes will produce the sperm cells. Now in this case, in the female, in the ovaries, it's where now the egg cells are produced, which are called the ovum. The egg cell is produced in the female. We call it the ovum. The other common word we use is egg cell, right? So the ovaries, after having produced the ovum will then travel through these oviducts. The common word that we normally use there is fallopian tubes. we normally use the word fallopian tubes as the other name for oviducts. Right. So the fallopian tubes is where the ovum will travel through after it has been produced. So those are now the secondary female reproductive organs. And then from the fallopian tubes, you have got the cervix, which is the mouth of the vagina. And then from the cervix, you move on to the vagina itself after you've moved from the cervix. And then you've got this part, the most important part, the uterus. The uterus is what they normally call, in the case of human beings, the womb. This is when now the fetus during pregnancy will develop. In the uterus. And then from there, you've got the vagina itself. So the vagina is just a mating organ, just like the penis. So those are not the organs that define the gender of an animal. They are just the mating organs. So during mating, the bull will insert its penis in this organ, which is the vagina, and then it will ejaculate the sperm cells there. Then the outer part that you see in the animal is called the vulva. That is not the vagina. What you see outside in the cow, it's your vulva. The vagina is inside. You don't see that one. All right. So those are the organs of a female reproductive system. And then let's look at now the examinable aspects on this part now. Still, na female reproductive system, as a learner, you must be able to label the organs. You must be able to describe the functions of each organ there, and also describing the reproductive process eyenzekayo kwi-females, which is kwi-male we said it's production of sperm cells, spermatogenesis. Now kwi-female it's oogenesis, production of the ovum. Now the other concept that scientists use is ovigenesis. All right. And then lastly, you must also be able to identify reproductive problems, again affecting now the female animal. So let's quickly look at those reproductive problems now in the female animal specifically. So others are common, just like in the male animal, the infertility, sterility, hermaphroditism, as well as hypoplasia, as we described them. So even the female animal, it can temporarily lose its fertility. It's infertile. Sterility, it can be a permanent loss as well as hermaphroditism. It can have both reproductive organs, or hypoplasia, underdevelopment now of organs. So hypoplasia in the male is underdevelopment of testes, but hypoplasia in the female, underdevelopment of ovaries, because the female organs now, it's the ovaries, not the testes. But here are some of the interesting other reproductive problems that are affecting the female animal. One of them is freematism. So if the female animal is a twin and they are of opposite sex, one is a male, the other one is a female, during gestation, during pregnancy, they are in the same uterus. So the hormones of the male calf can affect the female calf. Then by the time the female calf reaches pubertic stage, reproductively active, then it's no longer able to be behaving as a female. So it's going to be sterile in a way. Then we say that condition is freematism. And then the other problem is normally experienced during parturition. By animal izala, more especially the heifer, inkomo yakho izozala for the first time. So sometimes they can have difficulty in giving birth. So they are not used to this. The muscles are not as enlarged as possible. So that difficulty, delays in giving birth, it's called dystocia. That is the other reproductive problem affecting the female animals. And then the other one is placenta retention. After giving birth, the female animal might not have enough strength to eject the placenta. This placenta membrane that is attaching the fetus into the womb of the mother must be expelled from the body. But if there is no enough strength to expel it, placenta can be retained. That is another problem. And then the other one, during pregnancy season, due to various factors, the pregnancy can be terminated. So the problem is called abortion. If pregnancy is terminated before calving, ingekazali animal, maybe due to animal poison or stress, drought. There are many factors that can cause abortion, or maybe the animal, you mishandled the animal. And then the other problem is repeat breeder syndrome. That is affecting female animals as well. So the female animal has to mate at least 2 to 3 times to increase the chances of conceiving the pregnant. But zikhona ezizimate several times, 8, 9 times without conceiving. So we say in a repeat breeder syndrome. So these are the examinable aspects of understanding on your reproductive system. Thank you. Now, let's just take one of the sample questions to check how we examine these reproductive systems. This is one of the sampled questions. 4.1, the diagram below shows the reproductive system of a farm animal. So they are not specific whether it's a male or it's a female. But as you can see here, you have got the testes, you've got the penis. So definitely this is the male animal, which is a bull. Now let's try to look at the questions there. 4.1.1, identify the letter. So in this case, the examiner doesn't want you to write the names per se, just wants you to write the letter where each of the following occurs. So in this case, they described the functions for you. We want you to tell us the part, but in this case, not the name of the part. Just indicate the letter from the diagram. So A, it says, for instance, feeding of sperm cells by Sertoli cells during spermatogenesis. So the Sertoli cells are found in the seminiferous tubules. And then the seminiferous tubules, we know they are in the testes. So the answer here would be B, because our Sertoli cells are in this part, in the testes here, Parque seminiferous tubules. All right, and then the next one, transportation of sperm cells to the urethra. So like I said, from the testes, after they've been produced, they are stored somewhere here in the epididymis, and then they are transported through this duct, sperm duct. So that would be our vas deferens. But because the examiner wanted the letter, the answer again would be just D. There is our answer, which is pointing our vas deferens. And then the third part, secretion of sticky liquid. Now this liquid, it provides energy. As I said, the part that nourishes the sperm cells would be our E, which is the seminal vesicle. So the correct answer there would be E. So this one question was straightforward if you understand the functions of each part. But if you don't know the function of each part, you might struggle with this type of a question. And then let's move on again to the next question now. Here's the other important part. State 2 congenital defects of part B. So remember we said that word congenital, if they are inborn, animal izelwe nayo. So congenital, and they are saying for part B, which is the testes. So those that are affecting the male and izelwe say now. You can't say castration, for instance. Even if you remove the testes, that is not congenital. So one of the congenital defects there, it can be hypoplasia, which we said is the underdevelopment of the testes. Part B can be underdeveloped. The other one is cryptorchidism. if these testes do not descend into the scrotum bag, if they remain up there in the abdominal cavity, zingazohlala up kwi-scrotum. So that could be another congenital defect there. All right, then let's look at the last question there. 413, indicate the role played by part C. Now they want you to know the function. Part C as our mating organ. Here is our part C, the penis. So what is the role of part C in reproduction? Be careful. You can't say, for instance, urinating. We don't want general in excretion, but in reproduction. So the answer there would be, for instance, mating organ. The penis serves as the mating organ for ejaculation of sperm cells, semen, into the female reproductive cells. All right, so these were some of the sampled questions I wanted you to see how we examine this section of reproductive systems. And the other important part, quasi reproductive problems, you must be careful. If the examiner says, name the condition, you're going to say hermaphroditism, infertility, sterility. But if the examiner says the animal that has lost fertility temporarily, you can't say infertility, you need to say infertile. So that is the other important aspect you need to be careful when you are answering your questions. Let me just quickly repeat this part. Condition vis-a-vis the animal. So condition, infertility. But animal, infertile. You need to be careful there. Same thing, sterility, sterile. Hermaphroditism, hermaphrodite. Freemartinism, freemartine. So these are some of the aspects you need to pay attention to when you are trying to answer the questions. Whether the examiner is looking for the condition or it's looking for the animal with that particular condition. So that will be the end of our part 1, which is reproductive systems of a male and female animals. We have come to the end of our lesson. You can leave your questions on the comments. Don't forget to leave the name of your school so we can give shout outs. Please share, recommend, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thank you for watching. See you on our next lesson.